we touch it, it's going to be making loud noises for them. So don't be Well, if she's going to start that, I need to turn the sound.
The Shabbat Blessing. Baruch atah Yahweh Eloheinu, melech haolam, asher noten lanu et Yeshua Moshiach or ha'olam. Blessed are you, Yahweh our God, King of the universe, who gave to us Yeshua our Mashiach, the light of the world. A song for the Shabbat.
All right, off to a rocky start. We are tonight going to try to show you and teach you how you can do a sin sacrifice in your own home. No, there is not a temple. No, there are no temple priests. But our forefathers promised God when they said, we will do and obey, as we read it in English. What they actually said in Hebrew is, we will find a way to make it happen. So when we can't do something, for instance, when it was against the law for us to wear our fringe on our outer clothing in many places, we wore a fringe on an outer garment that was underneath the other garment, right? Just tucked it into our pants because we found a way to make it happen. We were told to wear a fringe. We couldn't put it on the outside, the outermost garment, which was really the law, but we did the next best thing. We put it on an inner garment that was actually on top of another garment so that it would be an outer garment, right? So we found a way to make it happen. Same way with the sin sacrifice. Oh, but Rob, you can't be doing a sin sacrifice because Mashiach died and that was the one and only sacrifice. The sin sacrifice has always been more memorial than real. For the Christian audience, Shaul said, that was only a shadow of things to come, that it only covered you for a short while, but Mashiach covers for all time. For the Jews, I know that we've been taught our whole entire lives that there's no temple and there are no priests, but you know what? There was no temple. There was no priest when the law was given. That didn't happen until after the law was given. Yet they still had sacrifices. Remember, there was one brother that gave a bad sacrifice and one brother that gave a good sacrifice. Wait a minute. They didn't have a temple. They didn't have... I hope you understand what I'm trying to tell you. We can still give sacrifice. Look at how many times in the Bible that people, individuals, gave sin sacrifices. And we do this because if there is no Mashiach, if he has not come, then isn't that how we need to cover ourselves? And if he has come, if Yeshua or perhaps somebody else was the Mashiach, then this is a memorial. This is a remembering. This is a shadow of what he did. Either way, we should truly consider making these sacrifices. Now, we don't have a temple. We don't have a home. And some of us, especially those who are part of this organization, live thousands of miles away. We're all over the country. Some are across the ocean. They can't be here for their sin sacrifice. So we put together a modern way to create this sacrifice without having to worry about the fire from heaven coming down and killing us, right? Because remember, that happened to two men who did it in the Holy of Holies. That's why they died. The other people who made sin sacrifices, nothing happened to them. So we're going to try to show you what you can do in your own home. It is why I'm not dressed up like a priest, why I'm not dressed up like a everyday rabbi like I am. I'm just dressed up like an everyday person. You follow? That's everything. This is just to make it I don't know, normal for you guys. So it's a Torah rebellion sacrifice at home, a DIY sacrifice at home kit, if you will. Now, I'm going to begin with Vayikra, chapter 4, verse 27. That's Leviticus, for those of you who don't know. It says, and this is my translation of the Hebrew text. This is not me taking it from someone else. This is me reading the Hebrew and writing in English what I believe it says in Hebrew. Given that I read Hebrew and understand it, it's probably a good translation. Starts to sacrifice. Probably a good translation. Anyway, it says, and if one soul from the people of the land shall sin in error in performing one of the commandments of Yahweh, which are not to be done, and becomes guilty, verse 28, or his sin which he sinned becomes known to him, he will bring an unblemished female kid from the goats, which, by the way, that can still be a sheep. In Hebrew, it's the same thing. They do have a way to distinguish between a goat and a sheep, but Hebraically, biblically speaking, a goat and a sheep are exactly the same thing, and it doesn't really matter. Anyway, so it's going to bring this female goat, where was I? For his sin, which he sinned. And then I'm going to jump to chapter 5, verse 16. And he will make peace for that sin against the holy. Not a sin against God, against the holy. Well, what is the holy? The law, the Torah, the words that proceeded forth from the mouth of God, which are perfect, pure, and holy. It says, goes on, and he will add 1/5 to it and give it, the additional fifth, with it, that be the sacrifice, to the Kohen. And the Kohen will spend it on a really nice heliport. I'm just kidding. You would have to commit an awful lot of sin to get there. Anyway, please don't do that. I don't want to heliport that bad. I don't know what I'd do with one anyway. Where if we could add a fifth with the sacrifice to the Kohen, and the Kohen will be, the Kohen, it says, will be a covering over him with the ram for the guilt offering, and he, speaking of the sinner, will receive mercy for the sin. He will receive mercy for his sin. It's a reduced sentence. God's going to go lenient on you. He's not going to strike you down because you broke one of his laws. This is our way to receive mercy from God when we mess up, and we're going to mess up, all of us. Now, but it goes on and tells us in the scriptures that if he cannot afford a lamb or a goat, he will bring 2 turtle doves or 2 young doves. And if he cannot afford 2 birds, he will bring 1/10 ephah of fine flour, which is about a handful of fine flour, which the Kohen will burn completely. The Kohen's going to take the thing and just burn all of the flour. They're not allowed to add oil or frankincense or any of that sort of thing to that particular offering. It's just supposed to burn up over the fire. So it depends on your financial situation. If you can afford a lamb, don't be bringing doves. If you can afford doves, don't be bringing fine flour. You follow what I'm saying? You better be honest with God, because this is where you get into the kind of sacrifice where bad things happen, right? Because that would be a strange fire. You better be honest with God. Now in Vayikra 3:8 it says, and he shall prepare to kill. Now who's the he? That's the sinner. He will lay his hands on it, it says in most translations, because that's literally what it says, but that's a Hebrew idiom. It says he will prepare to kill this animal. He will lay his hands on the head of the offering, that being the animal, and slaughter it in the presence of the 10 of appointed times. So we don't have the 10 of appointed times. We do then what the other people did that made these offerings throughout the Bible. We probably going to do this in our backyard with a barbecue pit. right? That's the way we do it in modern times. And the children of Aharon will sprinkle the blood around the altar. So, oh no, I just broke the altar. Oh, it didn't break. Okay, I thought it broke. We found an altar. Now remember, we're not in the tent of meetings. We're not behind the curtain. We're not bringing strange fire. This is symbolism, okay? So you can get you a little cup and you can put red Kool-Aid in it. You can put some of the actual blood from the animal. You can put some watercoloring and water. It doesn't matter. It's symbolic. It's a remembrance of what we're doing. We are not the Kohanim. We do not have to worry about the strange fire thing. But if you like, you can take your finger and you can dip that and sprinkle it. And sprinkle it. It's not coming off my finger. So we won't be sprinkling tonight. And it's supposed to run down the thing. If you want to do that, that may be a little gross for you. Don't worry about it. I guess I should have brought something. I did not know it was going to stick to my finger. Can you grab me a paper towel, please? All right. So, well, best laid plans. What can I say? But you can do that. It's because you're supposed to dip your finger in this blood and sprinkle 7 times. Dip 7 times and sling it off your. Now I've got a red dot on the end of my finger. I'm not sure what the blood will do, but I do know what food coloring will do. So anyway, you probably don't want to get that on your clothes. I'm just saying. I'm not trying to be comical here tonight. I am trying to be serious, but I'm sorry, that cracked me up. So anyway, you're going to be in your backyard. If you want to get, I'm serious, if you want to get something like this as a memorial and take your finger and dip it in some kind of probably red punch or something would be better. I don't know. But sprinkle, sling your finger and sprinkle it. And then whatever's left in your little cup, don't get just a whole lot. You're supposed to pour it on there and just let it run down. So I think that would be kind of neat, to tell you the truth. I'm kind of sad that didn't work. But we didn't test that out. I didn't even think to test that out. We should have. So he's going to sprinkle the altar. Now, wait a minute. Where's the Cohen in all this? How are we going to do that if we're in New York and you're in Texas? How are we going to pull that off? So let me explain. Let's say the husband commits a sin, and because it's more likely it'll be him than the wife, right? Sexist would say. No, I'm just kidding. Somebody says that on some show I saw once. But in the case of, the husband and wife, if the husband commits the sin, then let the wife do the part of the Cohen. You're doing a remembrance, you're doing a memorial, so it does not matter that it's the woman. There's no sin being committed here. There's no fire that's going to come down from heaven. Because we're doing this in remembrance of the time we did have the tabernacle, the time we did have the temple, the time we did have the priest. It's just a memorial. And if you're into the whole Messianic Christian thing, it's a memorial of what Yeshua did for you, right? It's a way to remember what he did, and how powerful is that? Think about it. You're not trying to take his place. You're not trying to cover the sin with this sacrifice, because if all of that's true and real, then that sacrifice has been made and you're already covered, and you're just remembering the sacrifice. How is that any different than eating a piece of bread or cracker or whatever it is that Christians do that with, and then drinking the pretend wine or the real wine? Or I don't actually know. So I'm just saying, how is that any different? That would have been a Cohen doing that as well. So I hope you know that I'm not trying to teach you to do something here that's sacrilegious. It is not. It is very religious. Okay, so he's going to, children, sprinkle the blood on the altar. Verse 1, chapter 1 and 6 says, and skin the offering and cut it into pieces. I wanted to add some kind of gross stuff here. In 1:7, and the children of Aharon the Cohen will establish fire on the Mizbeach, that's the barbecue pit in our case. You know, I've often said if we would call it a barbecue, a lot of more people would be a lot less scared of Judaism, right? Because the whole point here is to eat. Anyway, so the person who's playing the part of the Cohen is going to be the person who is going to establish the fire. You can't say, honey, I don't know how to start a fire, or you do it for me. No, if you're playing that part, you need to start the fire. So if you have to go beforehand and have honey teach you how to do it, then have honey teach you how to do it. I doubt seriously that any woman does, is going to have their husband do that for them, but maybe there's somebody. Because I imagine most women are quite capable of starting a fire in a barbecue pit. So anyway, the person who's bringing the offering is not supposed to start the fire. He is not supposed to stoke the fire, he or she. They are not supposed to mess with it in any way. It is the person playing the part of the Cohen who's supposed to do all of that. So you can get your significant other, whoever it is, to gather up the wood, to gather up the kindling, to gather up the fire, to gather up everything that's needed. But you have to arrange the logs. You have to put all that together. You have to spray the little starter fluid on it, and you have to light the thing up. That's on you because that's your part in all of this. So it's arrange the pieces, all of them. Now we're talking about the food that you're going to bring to it, and the logs on the fire that is on the barbecue pit. And then verse 9, and he will wash its torso and the legs in water, and the Cohen will smoke the entire animal, if you will, on the barbecue pit, and a burnt offering is what it's called. And then it says that the pleasure in knowing his children for Yahweh. What you probably read is a sweet smelling savor. But if you read the Hebrew, you realize that when we make this sacrifice, it is a smelling savor to God. What does that mean? It's a Hebrew idiom. It pleases God to know that his children are covered. So take this seriously, because you're remembering that whether God has made the sacrifice via Yeshua, or God will make the sacrifice via however he decides to make that sacrifice, you're covered. Because if God said he was going to do it 100 bazillion years ago and it still hasn't happened, it is as if it happened. Because if God said it, it will happen, right? So we're making a memorial either way. I hope you understand. I'm trying to cover this for both sides of the table here. But when we make these sacrifices to God, it pleases him. And this is a reminder, even to God, that we understand that he will make that sacrifice, or he has made that sacrifice. Whichever way you look at it, in my mind, it doesn't matter. Because God said it, it is done. Whether we're waiting for it or we believe it took place, it's already done because God spoke the words. Okay, so let's go on and look at the video.
Recording.
Now, over at this point, the person on the right side of your screen is the sinner. And he is watching the person playing the part of the Cohen, because it can be a friend. It doesn't have to be your spouse. In this case, it is his rabbi, and his rabbi is putting the sticks in place. Now he's getting the starter fluid, which of course they had back then. Anyway, he's putting the starter fluid in there. because it does have to be fire. You really need to be able to do this. Then he's going to grab the lighter. That's me. And he's going to start it up, and everybody's eyebrows are going to get singed. Just kidding. Let's not get that carried away with it.
Nice.
So the fire has begun. Put the little metal thingies on it so to burn off all the impurities. Try to keep your hand out of there. I didn't do all that well with that. I don't think I have any hair on my hands now. Do you close the lid on these, or do you let it burn for a while?
Let it burn till it catches.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let's go ahead and turn it off. Fire is quite mesmerizing. Now, at this point, the coals have burned down, and so the sinner needs to hand the sacrifice, the meat, to the person playing the Cohen. I am not a Cohen. I'm playing the Cohen. Cohen. I think I said Cohen. Cohen at this moment. So put it on the flames. Going to close it down. Let it cook for a little while. And now time has passed, and we're going to pull the meat out. What we are not going to do is hand that meat to the sinner. Why? Well, because that meat is for the Cohen. It's that simple. There is more to it, though. And now we're going to come to the hard part. And this is going to be audience participation. I'm going to, where it says congregation, I will begin the reading, and you guys jump in as quick as you can and read this with me. And then now this is what you'll do if you're playing the part of the Cohen. You'll read the congregation part. And then the person who's playing the part of the sinner, or in your case, who actually is the sinner, is going to read the other part. So here we go. You shall not have other gods before my face.
My sin placed me as the God whom I brought before your face. By my sin I have worshipped the idol. I have bowed to that idol. I neither obeyed nor trusted in you.
You shall not make for yourselves three-dimensional images of any form that is in the skies above, and that is in the earth beneath, and that is in the waters under the earth. You shall not bow down to them, nor serve them. For I, Yahweh, your God, am a zealous God, visiting the iniquities of the fathers upon the children, to the third and fourth, to those who hate me, and showing mercy to those that love me and keep my commandments.
With my three-dimensional body, which was created in your image, became an idol, in that I placed my selfish desire above your law. Blessed are you, O Lord, O God of creation, who has given me the ability to correct my path, which will save my offspring from my sin.
Amen. You shall not lift up the authority of Yahweh your God in vanity, for Yahweh will not hold guiltless those who lift up his authority in vanity.
I made a solemn oath to keep your law, and by my sin I have brought vanity and uncleanness to your name.
Remember the Shabbat day to keep it holy. 6 days you shall serve and do all your occupational work. But the seventh day is the Shabbat to Yahweh, your God. You shall not do any of your occupations, you nor your sons, nor your daughters, nor your male servants, nor your maid servants, nor your cattle, nor your strangers within your gates. For in 6 days Yahweh made the heavens and the earth, the sea and all that is in them. And on the seventh day he rested. Therefore Yahweh blessed the seventh day and made it holy.
Because of my sin, I enter the day of rest unclean. I have mixed that which is holy in me, the Torah, which is perfect, pure, just, and true, with the impurity of my sin.
Honor your father and mother, so that your days will be long on the earth that Yahweh your God gives you.
I have disgraced myself before the God of Israel, before Abraham, Yitzhak, and Yaakov, and before the children of my people.
Do not commit murder.
It is because of my sin that I now murder the innocent lamb. It is because of my sin that innocent blood is shed. My hands are covered with his blood.
Do not commit adultery.
I have committed adultery against my God in that I have bowed my head to the idol of self. I forsook the truth and bowed my heart, soul, and mind to sin against God. I have broken his commandments.
Do not steal.
My sin has stolen the truth and purity of God's law from those who do not love him.
Do not afflict your friends with lies.
My sin has denied the truth of your commandments. Therefore, I am a liar and have borne false witness against you.
Do not covet your friend's house. Do not covet your friend's wife, nor his maidservant, nor his manservant, nor his ox, nor his he donkey, nor anything that is your friend's.
I have coveted that which belongs to the God and creator of all that is. I ignored his rule over my life as if I had no God before me.
Vayikra 5:5 says, and it will be that because he is guilty of one of these sins, he will confess that he has sinned. It pains me that Bibles say that he will confess his sin. Nobody needs to know what sin you've confessed, what you've done. God knows. So it's not about confessing what you've done. It's about confessing that you did something.
My sin has caused my enemies to rejoice over my failure. My sin has stolen my peace, my innocence, my purity, and shown my lack of trust in my God.
I gave my back to those who I gave my back to those who whipped me, and my cheeks to those who plucked off my beard. I did not turn my face from shame and spitting. Isaiah chapter 50, verse 6. They shall see the servant of God beaten and bloodied, an object of horror. So disfigured, many will be astonished. His face and his whole appearance were so marred, more than any man's, one could scarcely know it was a person. Isaiah 52:14.
With my own hands I blindfolded you, thinking I had hidden my face from you. With my hands I struck your face. Then I laughed and spit on you. I tore out your beard and mocked you and said, tell me, who among us hit you, O prophet, who knows everything? It was my hands that ripped stripes into your back, my hands that forced a crown of 4-inch thorns onto your head. My hands launched the spear into your side. My sin caused your raging thirst. My hands forced vinegar against your lips. My sin forced you to push up on your feet nailed together just to receive a small gasp of air.
For those of you who think I just went Christian on you, every bit of that came from the Hebrew Bible. Every bit of it. For those of you who are Jewish, I don't see how you could read Isaiah and not know who did this, who this was done to, who we do this to when we sin against God's law. Our outward seeable sin reveals that which causes us to sin. There is no sin that can be hidden from God. Thus, there is no such thing as secret sin. It is a Hebrew idiom. What it is, what is it that is deep within us that causes us to commit the knowable, the outward sin? What is it inside us? Yeshua ben Yosef said that if we ignore or leave out or disobey or marginalize a commandment of God, we do the same to every commandment of God. If we do that to just one, we've done it to them all. Our dismissal of one law nullifies our purity in obeying any and all other laws. Our motives for obeying other laws is not pure. Certain laws as opposed to others. Our lives are not righteous in that. Our sacrifices will not be acceptable. This is different than committing sin, for all have and will again commit sin, and will thus fall short of the glory of God, which is in part his purity, his righteousness, and his flawless perfection. To sin is to break God's law, whether it's you do something he said not to, or you don't do something he said to do. That's the sum total of what sin is and what sin is not. It is Torah rebellion. Secret sin is that which is inside us. It's not something nobody knows about. God knows, and that's the only one that counts. Secret sin is what causes us to sin. So when we commit a sin and we realize that we have done so, because you can't make a sin sacrifice if you don't know you've committed a sin. That's why the scripture is written the way it is. But when we've done so and we come before God and we make these sacrifices, this is why. And this is how. Shalom, shalom, y'all.